dimple dies are just freaking sweet. So what's going on, YouTube? In this video here, I want to get this Jackshaft assembly finalized. All I have to do is install the shafts, get them connected with some sprockets and chain. I may have to build a chain tensioner. I don't know yet. I'll find out when I get there. And then throw a pulley on here, connect it with the new belt, squirt some paint on all the parts, and basically it's ready for a test rip. Before I can do any of that, I need to get the plates finalized, and before I can do that, I gotta figure out my muffler issue. So real quick, here's my muffler ordeal. This thing mounts something about here, but I have to show it to you up here so you can actually see what's happening. By holding this thing the way it should be mounted, you can tell this muffler overhangs the frame rail about 3/4 of an inch. So if we bring it back down to here, you can tell that this frame extension is just pushing the muffler out. It's not allowing it to sit inwards. I could build a new mount for this thing that'll space the muffler out 3/4 of an inch. But if I do that, I'm then going to have to modify the body for the exhaust tip. And I really don't want to do that. But what I really don't want to do is to modify the head tube coming out of the other end of the exhaust. And by spacing this thing out, I would have to modify that. So that option's really out. I'm not going to do it. My other options are I could build a new frame extension for this side or modify this one that allow the muffler to sit inwards. Or I could go back to my original plan, remove the frame extensions, and just bolt the bearing plates on top of the frame. That's what I'm going to do. I want to bolt these on the frame and get rid of those. So I threw the transaxle in here, tightened everything down so it's mounted in place. Went ahead, put this hitch plate on, that way it would lock the frame rails into place. And I had to assemble all this bearing support stuff down here, so I had to use my original pulley just to lock this pinion shaft into place. Once this thing was locked into place, I was able to slide this bearing support over the shaft here, got it sitting on the frame, brought a square up off of here, and then off that square I went to the edge of the plate to square the plate up on the frame. Now I'm basically just ready to drill 3 holes and bolt each side down to the frame rails. And once that's done, I can kind of do the same principles on this front bearing plate here for the Jackshaft. So I'm on to the front bearing plate now, but I got a surprise for you guys. This thing is so butt ugly that I decided to build a new one that's not as butt ugly. So I don't know how well you're going to see all the differences on this. There's really not too much. All the mounting points are the same. The bearing position's the same. All I really did was take all this extra material that was here on the front side and removed it. And then there was a little extra on the back. I took it out. And then the back side of the mounting area, I shrunk it in to match the other one that I just installed on the mower. Because it kind of looked weird when I had one thin one up against this wide one. Don't know how much you can see it, but something like so. So yeah, out with this one, in with this one. So I'm gonna give you guys a little behind the scenes theory on why I did what I did to this Jackshaft setup. Basically, when I built this front bearing plate here, I realized once it was going to be mounted to the frame that the front nose section was going to interfere with the rear fender, something terrible. I was going to have to notch a whole area out on these fenders to allow this to stick through. And I did not like that idea. I realized that the fenders had this little out dent here. So I was like, hey, I'll build the frame extensions to get this bearing plate up and hopefully I could tuck everything in there. And if I couldn't, I only would have to notch a little area. Well, now that I can't use those frame extensions, I'm back to this problem here. So that's kind of why I designed this one here. So if I have to cut anything, it's probably just going to be for the sprocket, and there'll be a smaller cut on these fenders. I really did not want to hack my fenders all up. So here it is, basically done. All I have to do is whack this shaft down. But I'm going to do that at a later date. It's nice outside right now. I gotta get this thing tore apart so I can paint the plate that I welded to the frame. So here's the rest of the bits and pieces that's going to take to finish this Jackshaft setup, minus the chain. Now there is a lot of weight to some of these parts and I don't want to have that weight on there. So I'm going to go ahead, take the time to chuck them up in the lathe and turn some of the excess material off of them. Alright, we're going to start with you. Done. You're next. And you're done. And on to you. Ta-da! So all the turning work is done, or I should say the lathe work is done. This pulley setup here, there's really nothing I can do to it since it's already welded together and there's really no extra material on here to take off. The only thing I got left to do to it is I got to plasma cut some belt disc out, some pulley disc, and weld it to the pulley. So my idea with lightening these sprockets up is just to slug a whole bunch of holes around in the excess metal. So I got the hub here. I got a piece of 5/8 rod that I chucked up in the lathe, took a center drill and just put a little dink in there. Then inside that mark I took the center punch and just like put a sharper dink in there. That goes down in there. I'm gonna have to throw this sprocket on first just because this lip of the hub sticks up above the sprockets, but that allows this one still to go on so I can do my circle for marking them out. And then set this up, tighten it up. Right. So now I can get this stuff out of the way. I have my bolt circle. Now what I want to do is drill a 5/16 hole on the center line of every single tooth of this sprocket. Now with this being an even tooth count sprocket, finding the center line of each tooth is fairly simple. All I have to do is take a straight edge, go off the center of one tooth, directly across the center of another tooth, lay the straight edge, and scribe my lines. Move to the next two teeth, do the same thing. Next two teeth, do the same thing, so on until the sprocket's done. Once I have all those marks on, I'm going to center punch, drill it to 1/8, drill it to 5/16, then put a fairly heavy countersink on there. Then this sprocket will be done and it can get welded to that hub. Now I just gotta countersink them. Check it out, the new sprocket finally came in. Took like a week to get here, then another week and a half of me goofing around to get back to this. But I'm back. So I want to do the same thing as this sprocket to this sprocket. I want to put a circle on here and then slug all kind of holes to lighten this thing up. I already went ahead and figured out what I needed. I took the distance between the lower spot of where the chain rides and where the hub sits, divided that in half, and that's going to be the radius for the bolt circle. And then I figured out 3/4 inch holes will fit nicely on there and give me just enough web room to hold the sprocket together. I want this side. So we'll go in that thing. It's going to be hard to see. There we go. Now I need 10 positions so I can drill 10 3/4 inch holes. Scribe across, flip it 180, scribe across again. And there it is. Weld my pulley disc on something like so. That way I don't have to run any belt keepers on my belt system. So to the welder. So I got them all cleaned up and they're ready for paint. What color am I going to paint them? There's only one color to paint them, Chevrolet orange. I wonder what color I'm going to paint these. Oh my god, this is looking freaking sweet. It's almost a shame to cover this stuff up, but I hope when it's said and done you don't see any of this stuff. Oh, as you can tell, I painted it all black. I got the new stainless steel shaft in. Dang! This spins for you. So we'll put the key in, put the coupler on, tighten that down, put the old bearing retainer shaft thingy holder on, remove half of this bearing, send the shaft through, catch the sprocket, go through that, install the other half of the bearing, get in there, there we go. I don't need a chain tensioner, that's not bad. You grind away. Uh-oh. Woo! Look at that! There we go. That is awesome. So you probably can't see crap down in here, but this bearing support plate that I built has like 1/8 of an inch of clearance to the body. The sprocket with the chain wrapped around it, sitting down on the lowest position that it can sit on the shaft, has about a 1/2 of an inch of clearance to the body. And the way I can tell the body's not hitting anything is where the body actually bolts to this riser plate. It's sitting flat on it, both sides. There's no gap, so everything's fitting, nothing's hitting, and this will work great. But what are you gonna do with your battery? Well, you'll have to find out in another video. Woo! Man, can you guys believe I got the entire Jackshaft assembly installed inside here with no body modifications whatsoever? That is awesome, because I really did not want to have to hack this body apart to clear anything. So my final goal was to retain 100% factory form when finished. Mission accomplished there. Now I just hope everything works like it should. And that's the thing, I'm going to have to wrap this video up here because I don't have a drive belt yet to go out and take this thing on a rip. So I can't test the system yet. And there's a few other things I need to wrap up on it. I want to get some locking collars to throw on the shafts just to hold everything in place. I got to cut keyways and put them in all the hubs. I still need to level the Jackshaft pulley with the engine pulley. And I got to get the exhaust thrown on this thing since that was a big ordeal there for a while. But after all that stuff's done, which I won't record any of that, we're going to go on a test rip with this thing. Or maybe even a little short ride. We'll see what happens. But I want to thank you guys for watching. Have a good one, and I'll check you all later.